Hello, all you true believers out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. This is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 discussion podcast. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo.
Today we're going to discuss Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 9, Covenant. Alternate title, Follow the Leader.
Okay.
I wanted to do like a Midnight Mass pun or something like that, but just wasn't happening. This episode originally aired November 25th, 1998. It was written by Renee Echevarria and directed by John Kretschmer. So I think that's got to be a new name, right?
It does sound... Hold on, let's take a look here. No, it is not a new name.
Oh.
It looks like John Kretschmer wrote one previous episode... Oh, no, I'm sorry, directed one previous episode of this show called A Simple Investigation.
Oh, right.
All the way back in Season 5.
That was the one where... Oh, that was the one where Odo fell in love?
Yep, that's the one. Also did 2 episodes of Voyager.
Oh, so a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
Sierra Clofton is not in the episode.
He sure is not.
What an episode to miss out on, Sierra Clofton.
I mean, a lot of the cast isn't in much of the episode, to be fair.
True. And the stuff they are in has no real effect on anything else that happens.
Yeah.
But just to let you know, we will be discussing spoilers up through this episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but not after this episode. So you can watch this if you have not seen after this episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and we probably won't spoil anything unless we forget. But stuff that's not Star Trek Deep Space Nine, we don't care. So, you know, we'll talk about Ned Stark dying and, the Planet of the Apes is Earth all along and all that stuff freely. So,
Yep. In Dogma, God is a woman.
Oh my
spoiler?
gosh.
I don't even know.
Is that really related to the plot, or?
It comes up in the plot. I don't know that it's real important.
So, yeah, watch out for that. But first things first, what do you think about the title, Covenant?
I mean, I get it.
Yeah?
It fits the episode, I would say. I don't know that it's super memorable. Or particularly clever. So I think it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely appropriate.
Yeah.
And there is a covenant in the episode, and it's
Yep.
a central thing of the episode, so... Yep. And it's kind of a cool sounding title, so... not bad, I think. I'm good with it.
I don't have super strong feelings one way or the other on this one, I think.
I don't know. It's not the worst in terms of memorability, because you can kind of detect, probably has a religious type thing or something.
Yeah.
I can't hear myself over that helicopter that's flying overhead, but...
Yeah.
All right, so the workday is over, or something, and the staff of Deep Space Nine meet at Quark's to unwind with some drinks and a round of, let's discuss this week's themes. Esri orders a Tillerman froth. Bashir goes a little bit less fancy with a Romulan ale, but nothing wrong with falling back on a tried and true.
Well, I mean, it's legal now, so you gotta take advantage.
Exactly, yeah. And since all the people who consume liquid have ordered, Quark starts to head back to the bar, but Odo cuts in and says, "Spring wine for me." What? What's going on with Odo? Has he figured out how to start drinking? We dwell on this bizarre occurrence for a moment until Odo clarifies that he's just ordering for Kira, who is still at Temple. Which, I'd like to note, there are a bunch of Bajorans in the background at the bar, so I guess either they don't go to Temple or they're skipping.
They went to another... They went to, like, the early session.
They went to morning service or something. Or maybe Kira just held back to socialize.
Could be. She's one of those.
Yeah, exactly. And little kid tugging at her like pant leg, being like, "Mom, can we please go? I want to go to Luby's. I want to go to Space Luby's." But whatever. Kira quickly shows up and says that she was listening to a 2-hour sermon on forgiveness, which when I was a kid, I think even the most devout members of my family would have just stood up and walked out if the sermon went longer than 30 minutes. But like, I can just visualize my dad just being like, "Okay, let's go."
I get it. I forgive people. But yeah, fine.
Odo sheepishly suggests that Kira spends so much time at temple that he kind of wishes he was religious so he could join her, which Ezri finds very sweet. She mentions several times. Kira says, "Well, obviously you're welcome to join me, but it might be kind of hard to sit through a 2-hour sermon if you don't believe in the prophets." Although I have to wonder, what does it mean to not believe in the prophets? Like, who do you think erased all those Jem'Hadar ships from existence?
I mean, there's a difference between knowing that like these things exist and believing that they should be worshipped and you should follow the like path that they have laid out for you or whatever.
Sure. Okay, yeah, good point. I mean, yeah, the founders exist, but I think most people do not want to worship them, so that's a fair point.
Exactly.
I was also thinking maybe you could believe the wormhole aliens exist, but you like might not believe that they're the prophets of Bajoran legend or whatever.
Interesting. I mean, I think they pretty much admitted it, so you'd have to be like, they're liars. But
they could be.
It's interesting, actually, you bring up the founders, because since a lot of beings might call Odo a god, he's like, nah, I can't believe in other gods, you know?
Right. I had a note about that in here somewhere, but I forgot where it was. So Odo suggests that he might believe in the prophets if he had an orb experience, but Kira says it doesn't work like that. Faith has to come first, which I think is an arguable point, but okay.
You could read what she says as you don't get an orb experience unless you have faith, but we know that's not the case, because like all the way back in the first episode, Cisco gets shoved in front of an orb and he's like, "What is this thing?" And they're like, "It's a tear of the prophets. Just look at it."
Anybody who looks at an orb seems to get an orb experienced, so...
Yeah. So, but I can see why it's like, if you're not open to the possibility that these are like God who, you know, has a plan for you or whatever, then, and you just are like, "Oh, they're powerful aliens." Well, having an orb experience just means the powerful alien showed you a vision, which is another thing that you already know they can do. True. I don't see how that would change things necessarily.
I kind of interpret it as a, you know, blessed are those who believe but have not seen type thing. Like a doubting Thomas type thing. But Odo further muses that it must be nice to believe in something higher than yourself. Oh, this is my thing. Which I think is a pretty uncommon opinion for a changeling.
Yeah, probably.
Bashir and Ezri suggest Odo could try out other religions, maybe Klingon religion. Which brings up an important point, I think, which is, can you get into Sto-vo-kor if you're unable to eat the hearts of your enemies?
I mean, I guess technically Odo could eat it, he just couldn't digest it. He'd have to throw it back out somewhere else.
I need to know what the Klingon theologians say about this. But Odo says, "I think you're all missing the point. I just want to go to church with my girlfriend."
Not really the best reason to convert to a religion, I have to say.
It's like I converted when I married Cynthia.
Yeah, I was about to say, unless you're Walter and you're like very loyal to this faith even after the fact.
Just turn in my card. Stop being Jewish. Later, Kira's at home lounging, very comfortably looking and reading, when she gets a visitor. It's Vedek Fala. Don't worry, you don't have to know who that is. We soon learn that Vedek Fala was a religious instructor of Kira's when she was a kid. I don't know if she's ever mentioned this in dialogue before, but there he is.
Yeah, no, he's totally long been an important figure in her history.
Right. He's apparently on some kind of spiritual retreat, for apparently he sees faith as a journey that never ends. Although his journey of faith does end in this episode. "Oh, I brought you something," says Fala, and hands Kira a wadded-up napkin from the bar. Kira opens it to find a little gem-looking thing, which starts glowing. And then, surprise, you're not on Deep Space Nine anymore. We cut to a familiar sideways space station.
Oh my gosh, it's the sideways one.
We know what this is. Kira rematerializes in a room full of Bajorans wearing red armbands. "Welcome to Impact Nor," says one of them. Kira's like, "What? I can't be on Impact Nor. That's impossible." And then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about that part. See, this transponder allowed us to beam you here. Don't think about or ask any more questions about that. That's not important for the rest of the episode."
I mean, it really gives us the first explanation as to what happened to that, like, Vorta who beamed away from Deep Space Nine all those years ago.
Yeah, well, this explains several things, like how Dukat got onto the station that one time. I think this has happened several times with, like, Vorta and Jim Hadar beaming into the station. How they're able to get their changeling infiltrators around. So
sure. Now, my biggest question is honestly, why didn't Fall Guy just, like, take 2 of these so that he could also come back this way and not have to, like, go the long way?
I assumed that's what he did.
Well, he comes back way later, so I assume that, well, I guess we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't know how he got there, so. Well, at first I thought when she took it, it didn't come with her, but then I saw that it did. Yeah. So I was like, I guess he had a second one, and he just used that or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
This is a plot convenience. So Kira is like, "Hey, wait a second. Red armbands? You guys are the Pa Wraith cult. What are you guys up to?" And the guy says, "You should ask the master." And she's like, "Who's the master?" "I am," says a familiar voice.
Yeah, it's like, why would you say that if he's standing, like, right over there?
A man standing in front of what appears to be the altar of this Pa Wraith temple turns around, revealing himself in a perfectly timed, dramatic move as Gul Dukat.
Yeah, and there's they shoot it in such a way that, like, the director purposefully had him so it looks like he has a halo above his head when it, like, zooms in on his head.
I didn't notice it, but my brain did. But Kira's like, "Bullshit, you were not standing there a second ago."
I totally would have noticed that.
Yeah. I guarantee I would have noticed if I saw Gul Dukat standing right there. Also, you're the leader of a Bajoran religious sect now? That kind of beggars belief. That's like Heinrich Himmler becoming a rabbi.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of out there. Although, you know, Heinrich Himmler becoming the rabbi of, like, the murder cult.
Sure.
You kind of get that a little more.
Jewish Satan or something.
Yeah.
So Kira asks if the Dominion is cool with Dukat using Impact Nor as a religious space. And he's like, "Oh yeah, they said if I cleared out all the murderous feral super soldiers, I could do whatever I want with it."
Also that, like, body of a Vorta that was left just walking into a wall.
Oh yeah. He was like, "That was really weird. I had to figure that situation out."
We showed up and that was real strange.
And he was like, "I set up a Dominion 503C too, so it's all tax free."
We put, like, walking Vorta guy into, like, a big hamster wheel, and now he provides free energy.
We still can't figure out how to get the station right side up, though. That's the one thing we can't do.
Actually, it's just, it looks better this way. We fixed it, and we're like, it was cooler the other way.
I kind of miss it being tilty, you know?
Like, now if you look at it, I'm like, is this Deep Space Nine? Is this Impact Nor? Like, who even knows? So we put it back.
Yeah. Dukat points out Kira's new hairdo, and she's like, No, we're not done explaining what's going on with you. What's up with the earring?" Dukat says it symbolizes a covenant he's made with his new followers. "Makes sense," says Kira. "They worship evil." But Dukat is like, "Oh no, the Pa Wraiths aren't evil. From my point of view, it is the prophets who are evil."
I mean, that is essentially the theological argument that is happening here, yes.
Yeah. He's like, "Don't you wonder why the prophets allowed the occupation of Bajor and for me to commit all those atrocities?
Yeah.
You see, I have no responsibility for all my own actions because I was allowed to do them by the prophets.
No one stopped me, so really, it's not my fault."
But the prophets did stop that massive invasion fleet, though. Whatever. Dukat goes on to explain his belief that the Pa Wraiths actually wanted to help Bajor, and that's why the mean prophets expelled them from the Celestial Temple.
It really makes so much sense now.
Mm-hmm. Luckily, the Pa Wraiths made me their emissary, and I'm going to help them get the Celestial Temple back. again. Kira doesn't know if Dukat is faking or just insane, and he declares, "I have been touched by the hand of a god," which is kind of a weird way to say that, but okay.
Yeah, say it somehow.
Dukat admits, "At first I was just out to get revenge on Captain Sisko. That's why I let the Pa Wraith enter the wormhole." And she's like, "Is that a figure of speech?" Or, "Yes," continues Dukat, "the Pa Wraith was only inside me for a short time, but it opened my heart, as well as other parts of me."
And she's like, "Oh yeah? Was that before or after you murdered my friend?"
Right?
And then he brushes that off and she doesn't follow it up in any way.
Yeah. He's like, "I wish I had the words to describe to you what it was like to have the Pa Wraith within me." And she's like, "Could you please stop phrasing it like that?"
Boom, phrasing.
He's like what? "I was touched by the hand of a god, and so I offered to let it enter the wormhole, and it entered inside me, and when it was inside me, it was the deepest experience of my life. Well, since my therapy sessions with Dr. Cox, but..."
I could feel its love.
I could feel its love deep inside me. And then Kira's like, "Hey, wait, you killed Jadzia." And Dukat is like, "Hey, look, you don't understand. I wanted to get over there, and she was standing over there. I asked her to move, but then she did something weird. She just threw her phaser down and said, 'With my last breath, I curse the Klingon religion and reject Stovacor.'" And I was like, "What the heck?" And I didn't have time for that, so I had to Pa Wraith magic her. Anyway, now that Dukat follows the Pa Wraiths, he once again feels he has a role to play in the destiny of Bajor. Maybe absolute ruler? Who knows?
Yeah, it could happen. That's really beside the point.
We'll see how the Pa Wraiths play it.
Yeah.
Dukat invites Kira to join him and his loyal followers, who love him. Kira says, "They don't really love you. You're just a manipulative charlatan who has them fooled." And Dukat says, "Come on, open your heart to me. Just like I opened my the wormhole to the Pa Wraiths." And Kira's like, "No." Meanwhile, back on Deep Space Nine, the right side up space station, people have noticed that Kira isn't around. Sisko, O'Brien, Worf, and Odo go to her quarters to look for clues. The chief detects signs of a Dominion transporter. And Sisko says, "Makes sense, Dominion transporters have a way long range." In fact, according to Worf, a Dominion transporter can reach up to 3 light years if a transponder is in place. In fact, if they wanted, they could set up an elaborate network of transponders and be able to travel anywhere in the galaxy instantaneously without ships. "Okay, that's enough," interrupts Sisko. "Let's not follow that through to its logical conclusion. Let's just get back to the plot of the episode."
So, does that mean Empok Nor has to be within 3 light years?
I guess so. I don't know.
I felt farther away for me in the other episode, but maybe that's just my imagination.
Mm-hmm. So O'Brien finds the wadded up bar napkin and detects that there was a transponder wrapped in it. Looks like there was some cheese fry grease, too. "Well," says Sisko, "looks like we did all we could do. Anyone up for some quarks?" Back on Empok Nor, Dukat has Kira locked in her room. Or in a room with a broken lock. I assume it's his doing. But at least there's a space heater in there. A Chekhov's space heater.
I like this implication. That's like, maybe she just got a shitty room. Like, it's unclear.
He's like, "Oh, your door was broken? I'm so sorry. Let me comp you." But Kira gets a visitor. It's Vedic Fala. Again. Fala reveals that he's a longtime worshiper of the Pa Wraiths, long before it was cool.
Yeah.
He insists that the Pa Wraith cult is nice and peaceful. That guy who tried to assassinate Sisko? Fake news. That was a false flag by Space Antifa. And I'm pretty sure that guy was an illegal immigrant, too.
Probably.
Kira says, "If you're so peaceful, stop holding my prisoner." "No," says Fala.
Yeah, sorry, the master wants you. And like, isn't the fact that he makes you call him the master like a red flag of some sort?
That's a pretty red flag.
And Fala's like, no. Actually, I came up with that. He just seemed so masterful.
He was like, no, please, don't call me master. And I was like, "I must call you master." And he was like, "Okay, but just keep it up. Just keep it,
It's like Fala's kink, and it just kind of spread.
He's like, Master, open my wormhole. So, yeah, Kira asks Fala how he could follow Dukat, and he says, you have to learn about forgiveness. But, I mean, there's forgiveness, and then there's bowing down and worshiping someone. I think those are two different things.
I mean, they're not mutually exclusive.
True.
But, no.
So, Fala takes Kira on a tour of the station. They pass a man using a phaser as a welding torch, subtly setting up a Chekhov's gun.
Ha, gun.
C says Fala, this is all hippy-dippy and peaceful. Fala introduces Kira to Mika, a pregnant woman. She and her husband are the first to be granted permission to have a baby. Wait, you need Dukat's permission to have a baby, says Kira. Oh, no, says Fala. You just need to have his permission to have sex.
This is another one of those things. It's like, he says that they were a group before Dukat showed up, basically, right? Like, he's been following this for a while. So, Dukat showed up, became the master. How exactly did he, like, propose this? Like, so, I understand you guys have just been having sex all willy-nilly. We can't have that. I'm sorry. That's against the Pa Wraith's plan. So, I will be the gatekeeper of sexual relations.
Well, I mean, Fala makes an allusion to, like, a past spiritual practice of abstinence or something like that. He briefly mentions it. He's like, Dukat brought us back to that old way or something like that. But, yeah. I mean, clearly this is heavily inspired by David Koresh in the Branch Davidians, which I know of from watching the Waco miniseries. Which I love the scene where David Koresh is explaining. He's like, no, see, I had a vision from God that they should all the men needed to stop having sex, and I would have sex with all their wives. And he says, but I don't do it for my own kicks. And it's just like, press X to doubt, as I think the kids like to say.
So there's a note in the wiki that says specifically the episode was inspired by the Heaven's Gate cult. Which the cult was inspired by the Comet Hale Bop.
Right.
And 38 members in 1997, including the brother of Nichelle Nichols, committed suicide.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, me either.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of Heaven's Gate and there's a little bit of Branch Davidians. So,
also, the end of this Heaven's Gate note says, the group has an official website, which is still accessible today.
I did see a documentary, and one of the things is, like, one of the followers did not participate specifically so that they could, like, maintain the website or something like that.
Well, I love that discussion. It's like, okay, so we're all going to do the thing. We're going to need one person to stay behind because the website needs to stay up. Like, IT guy, are you okay with that? He's like, I was really looking forward to the
right.
whole, okay, fine.
I wanted to get on the UFO, but...
Yeah.
Hey, have you ever seen the Key and Peele sketch about the Heaven's Gate?
I don't think so.
It's like... a TV interview with like two like quote unquote bystanders who were obviously like in the cult but like didn't like take the poison or whatever.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, I mean, they're like trying to play it off like they weren't in the cult. They're like, yeah, I mean, I heard about this cult and, you know, I was like, it's like, how is there a UFO behind the moon? I mean, just based on what I heard, like that's, you know, kind of what I thought when I heard about this just now, like... And it's pretty funny. I'll link in the description, unless I forget.
Unless I don't, yeah.
Suicide cults are funny. So anyway, Kira's like, how is Dukat all about abstinence now? He molested like half of Bajor.
Yeah, I love she's like, his appetites are legendary. Like, it is, everyone knows what Dukat was about.
Yep. But Fala is like, that was before he felt the kiss of the Pa Wraith. And it's like, seriously?
And then Kira says some kiss, which is the same thing that gets said about like when Odo and Kira kissed in an earlier episode.
Oh my gosh, good callback. Maybe. Next, Fala introduces Mika's husband, Binyan, who is painting a very disturbing mural depicting Dukat as some kind of messiah figure.
Yep.
Binyan is defensive about his faith and says he doesn't need Kira to approve of them.
Doesn't seem to want Kira here at all.
Kira's like, cool, I don't approve. Can I go home now?
Yeah. It's like, I'm glad we're on the same page. You don't need my approval. I'm not going to give you my approval, so...
Next, it's time for temple services. Everybody gathers, and Dukat leads the congregation in the Pa-Wraith Lord's Prayer. Kira looks around and notices the guy with the phaser, and she grabs the phaser and aims it at Dukat, but all the cult members gather in front of Dukat, blocking her shot. And then I'm shouting, "Do it!"
Yeah, it's like, just shoot them.
These people deserve to die. Just take them out.
It's like, you're not going to kill some innocent people. And I'm like, A, they're like the antithesis of your religion.
Uh-huh.
Maybe go ahead and do it. But B, phasers have a stun setting.
True.
You don't have to kill them.
This is a very good point. I just think it's worth a little collateral damage to be able to take Dukat out. But
to finally nail Dukat, absolutely. I would not have hesitated personally. Were I in her situation, I wouldn't have even like, hey, you all get down. I would have just started blasting.
Right.
And,
don't wait for them to all gather. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, Kira just backs down. Then someone comes up behind her and knocks her out with a good old-fashioned Star Trek double fist back bonk.
Yep, that's how you do it, the double fist.
Dukat whispers in her ear, "Now, do you understand how much they love me?" And Kira says, "No, I'm unconscious." Kira comes to in Dukat's residence, I guess. He has creepily removed her tunic so that he can, quote, check on her bruise.
Yeah, right.
He offers her some food, but Kira just stares at a fork and knife with really spiky handles. "I know what you're thinking," says Dukat. "That fork and knife look really uncomfortable to hold." But Dukat says, "No, you can't kill me. You'd only make a martyr out of me." And I'm like, "Do it. Grab that knife." But apparently Kira has had a change of heart and now wants Dukat to live to see all his followers realize what a fraud he is.
I mean, that's... I would call that like a would be nice if, as opposed to something that you need.
Yeah, that's definitely a luxury. You need to. This is a classic mistake. You need to grab that knife and cut his throat.
One of the classic blunders, as it were.
Yep. Dukat goes into some of his usual, "I was only helping the Bajorans. I made the occupation not as bad as it could have been." And Kira is basically like, "What the fuck ever, man.
Those women were my due reward for how good I was."
Yep. He was like, she was like, "You made my mom a sex slave." He was like, "No, she loved me." And Kira's like, "No, she didn't." And Dukat is like, "Yeah, maybe."
I love that moment where he's like, "Well, even if she didn't, that's not here nor there."
Yeah. He's like, "The Pa-Wraiths have given me a chance to redeem myself for all the horrible things I did." By which I mean all the good things I did, because I always loved the Bajorans and tried to help them. Then Dukat goes on to do some more general creeping. And he says he welcomes the challenge of getting Kira to open her heart. If he can get her to open her heart, he can get anyone on Bajor to open their heart. And I say, quit saying open your heart, please.
It's obviously the reason why we kidnapped you. I feel like it's never satisfactorily explained why we decided we were going to go and steal Kira, other than Dukat has always been creepily obsessed about her.
Yeah, that's clearly the only reason. I mean... Then one of the cult members, who has lines, runs in and announces that Mika has gone into labor. "Cool, let's all go watch that," says Dukat.
It is often a spectator sport, little known fact.
So everybody gathers around to see the new baby. "I see no way this could go wrong," thinks Dukat. Mika gets wheeled out holding the baby. She seems totally calm, like nothing's wrong, and none of the medical professionals who presumably perform the delivery seem to think anything is amiss.
I don't know. There's a lot of weird faces when she gets rolled out. Like the nurse or whatever standing directly behind her is really giving her and this child like some stink eye.
Maybe I didn't read it, but maybe you're right. But then Binion goes to look at the baby, and surprise, Cardassian baby. Mika looks at her husband with an unmistakably meaningful look.
Yeah, it's like clearly super guilty look.
And then Dukat comes over and is like, wow, it's a miracle. The baby was transformed magically in the womb to be Cardassian, magically. No Cardassian sperm got in there, that's for sure.
What did you think about the baby?
Looked pretty good, I thought. I was like, how'd they do that to that baby?
Yeah, so Initially, the producers wanted the baby to be fairly visible during Dukat's proclamation about the miracle, this note says. But the problem was there are very strict rules about applying prosthetic makeup to an infant, and how long the infant can be on set. As such, producers decided to go with an animatronic baby.
Oh, wow.
And they hired the people who made the Chucky doll for the 1988 Tom Holland film Child's Play. Wait, was that guy really named Tom Holland? Wow, okay.
Oh.
However, according to BC Cameron, it looked like Chucky with a Bajoran nose. His eyes were blinking, and he was really spooky looking. Ira Bear says that the first shoot of the scene where Dukat holds up the baby, the gathered crowd produced the biggest laugh ever seen in dailies. This animatronic baby was moving its head, and Mark was holding it up for the camera, playing the scene for all it was worth. Even though it looked ludicrous, it looked as if you were proclaiming to the world, "Take a look, this is a phony baby. You can get one at Toys R Us, $35.95.
Nice.
It says, we were all howling with laughter and crying with frustration at the same time. The day will live in infamy.
Nice. So,
needless to say, the scene was reshot sans animatronic baby.
So how'd they do the baby then?
So I guess the one shot of the actual baby's face or whatever, they applied like minimal baby prosthetic or something that was allowed within the rules. Huh. But it's just like you don't see the baby like the whole time he's walking around and stuff with it. So,
well, I think it sold it. So, just to think that there's that Cardassian baby Chucky out there somewhere.
Yep, it's hiding out there somewhere.
That would be a good artifact to find. Red Letter Media or someone needs to get their hands on that.
Yeah.
So, he's like, it's a miracle. It's a sign of what? I don't know. But the whole crowd is like, okay. And they all start chanting in celebration.
Yeah, they're into it.
And then later Kira talks with Fala, and she's like, this has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And I saw Captain Sisko play hopscotch once.
It's true, that happened.
And Fala says, no, you have to have faith. Faith means suspending your reason to such a degree that you can deny your own eyes and everything you know about reality and replace it with what some guy tells you. And Kira's like, what? No. And then he's like, well, your prophets made that fleet of Jem'Hadar ships disappear, didn't they? And she's like, oh, now you want to bring that up? But Kira goes and asks if she can go talk to Mika and Binyan to investigate this matter further. And Fala allows it after she promises to be very tasteful and discreet.
Yeah, this is Kira.
Two traits that Kira famously has. So Kira goes and talks to Binyan and very tastefully and discreetly asks him, hey, you stupid cuck, you really think that's your baby?
I mean, yeah, essentially. It did. Yeah,
yep.
No, it didn't go well. It's funny, though. I have reached the point in my Star Trek watch through where Next Gen and Deep Space Nine start, like, coinciding. And I just watched the pilot again of Deep Space Nine today. And it was like, man, Kira really has changed. We've talked about before how Kira is a different character, but, like, watching a Season 7 and a Season 1 episode back-to-back, you really see some of the differences, but also some of the ways in which she hasn't changed. So it's interesting.
I mean, she has mellowed out, but, that happens to people. So, Kira asks if Binyan ever prayed privately with Dukat, and he says yes. And she asks if Mika ever prayed privately with Dukat, and he's like, yeah, but the gears are clearly turning in his head. He's like, wait, I wonder if he did the ritual of entering the wormhole with her also. He told me I was special. Next, they go to look for Mika to interview her.
Yeah, I love how Fala is still on board with this. You really start to think, like, does he actually suspect too, and he just isn't willing to say? Because he should not be like, well, I sure hope you're more subtle than next person that we interrogate if he was 100% on board with the Dukat thing.
Yeah. But for some reason, Mika is hanging out in an airlock. I guess Dukat told her to meet him there or something.
Yeah, I think that's what it says.
Which, if your secret lover asks you to meet in an airlock, you're gonna have a bad time. So Dukat comes into the airlock and says, why didn't Mika tell Dukat that he was the father? And she's like, dude, what do you mean? You have the exact same information I do. And Dukat apologizes for being, quote, weak that night, and I do not even want to know what he means. Mika says that if Binion confronts her about the baby, she doesn't think she'll be able to lie to him. And then Dukat thinks, God, these people are so dumb. And he tells her, okay, well, sounds good. You just stand right there for a little bit.
Yeah, don't move.
And then in the most predictable move ever, he goes out and just closes the door and opens the airlock with her still inside. But luckily she gets caught on the airlock door and doesn't get blown out into space. Also luckily, Kira and Fala show up just in time to rescue her. They take her to the doctor, who announces that Mika will make a full recovery, but she's sedated for now. Bet she has some interesting stuff to say, though.
Nah, it won't be interesting at all.
Dukat is like, man, what an unfortunate accident. And Kira's like, are you fucking for real? Like, are you all the stupidest people in the universe?
And they all say, yes, we are.
Yes.
Allow us to continue to prove that as the episode progresses.
So Dukat has Kira taken away and leads the cult members in some chanting, but now it seems like both Binion and Fala are having some doubts. Dukat goes home and he prays to the Pa Wraiths, the basic theme being, hey, I'm kind of in a pickle here. Do you guys maybe want to step in? Because I'm not much use to you if, like, my followers murder me.
Yeah, so this is an interesting scene to me because there's a note talking about how Renee Eshavari is like, yeah, we had to put in this scene. I came up with this idea that you see him praying alone at some point. He's not performing for anybody. In his own twisted, self-aggrandizing way, he genuinely would prefer to send people to their makers with their faith intact rather than allow it to fall apart. He has become a true believer.
I mean, I'm still not convinced, but I mean, you don't have to, believe everything to believe that there's some Pa Wraiths out there that might help you or something.
Wow, it's almost like what was happening and being discussed with Odo at the beginning of the episode.
Oh my gosh.
It's come full circle.
Later Dukat calls a special temple service where he announces good news.
Good news, everybody.
Good news, everybody. The Pa Wraiths have granted me one final vision. We've all been called up to help the Pa Wraiths reclaim the Celestial Temple.
Yep, being called up to the majors. It's a big deal.
But first, we all have to shed our corporeal forms, if you know what I mean. And everybody's like, yay, mass suicide. And everybody cheers. Listening over the intercom in her room, Kira's like, oh my god, what the hell? And then afterwards, Dukat comes to Kira's room and he says, so, hey, me and the followers are all going to kill ourselves, so I went ahead and called the Defiant to come pick you up, because I assume you don't want in on that.
It's very thoughtful of him, honestly.
Yeah. And he's like, it's weird. It seemed like they'd all forgotten you were gone.
There was a party happening in the background. I think there's somebody's birthday at Quark's or something,
yeah. They're like, oh, crap, right, Kira. Kira says she doesn't believe Dukat really intends to die with his followers. Correct. And then he shows her a little clear tablet. Promazine, developed by the Obsidian Order for their operatives, causes quick death and turns the body into dust to prevent identification.
Very slick. I like it.
But if the enemy captures someone and then they die and turn to dust, won't that be a big giveaway that they work for the Obsidian Order? And Dukat's like, I don't know.
Well, apparently it's really easy to mix up a batch because they had a bunch here.
I guess so. That reminds me of the story. I think it's onion routing technology or whatever.
Yeah.
It was invented by the CIA to hack people, but they had to make it publicly known, because if people kept getting hacked by people using onion routing or whatever, they would know it was the CIA doing it. Anyway, yeah, this is the part where Kira's like, wow, you really do believe, which I'm still not convinced, but Dukat gathers his followers together so he can trick them all into killing themselves to prevent them from learning that he raped one of them and got her pregnant. Tonight on Star Trek.
Really, his biggest mistake here is that he had the big meeting and announced it, and it was like, we're going to do this later. He should have just had the bowl of stuff ready, and he's like, hey, right now.
Yeah, like Midnight Mass. You pull out the trays of poison, you're like, all right, everybody, let's do this. But yeah, he was like, all right, everybody, let's kill ourselves. And I was just like, Dun, da, 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 da. So everybody files into the temple and grabs a pomazine tablet or promazine or whatever.
Yeah, the first guy who picks it up, like, has a... I don't know if he's overacting it or what, but he's looking at it like, wow, look how cool and interesting this little thing is.
Can't wait to kill myself with this.
Yeah.
And then Binion, holding the baby, grabs 2.
Ugh.
Da, 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 da.
That baby's not ready for solid food yet. I hate to break it to you.
I don't know. But maybe it's quick dissolving or something. So Kira wires her space heater into her door lock, and the door pops open.
Woo.
She runs into the temple right as everybody's about to take their pills. Then she jumps from the second floor balcony and tackles Dukat, knocking over the big dish of pills in the process. And Dukat's pill goes flying out of his hands and mixes with the rest. So, classic, two-face coin scenario.
Yep.
Dukat searches through the scattered tablets, but comes up empty-handed. So Fala offers him a fresh one, but he doesn't take it. Obviously, his pill was a fake, and he had no intention of dying. And now, suddenly, the crowd stops being stupid, and everybody starts murmuring.
Yeah, they're like, wait a second, he's not going to die with us? This is some bull. I was only going to die because he was going to die.
And then possibly the most hilarious line in Star Trek history, when Binion says, "This is his child."
He's like, wait a second.
Everybody starts throwing their suicide pills at Dukat in a hilariously dark moment.
It's like, why would you... Those have no heft to them. They're not going to hurt him. I don't... go punch him.
Dukat starts ranting about how the Paw Wraiths aren't done with him, and now they'll never know the love of the Paw Wraiths, blah, 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 blah. But the people aren't having it, so he just rips off his earring and then beams out of there.
I do love that through all of this, he had his emergency exit strategy of beaming out, ready to go.
He knew where this might end up.
Yeah.
So everybody continues murmuring angrily, except Fala, who eats his pill. And then he's like, "Faith," and then he dies.
And presumably turns to dust. We don't see that part.
Yeah, that would be a special effect. They're tired of making the episode at this point.
Yeah.
But back on the Defiant on their way home, Kira talks to Odo about the whole situation. She says she doesn't know if Fala meant he was saying he still had faith, or if he felt betrayed by his faith. And Odo's like, "Who cares? That guy was a moron."
Yeah, it's like, dude was a nut job, man. Don't think too much about it.
But Kira says that Dukat has now become the most dangerous thing of all. A true believer. Is he, though? The end.
Also, during the scene, creepily in the background, you see, the lady with the baby and her husband, sitting, not wanting to look at each other.
Yeah.
It's like a very, I don't know, it's kind of a disturbing framing.
Yeah, but I think it's meant to show, hey, look, these guys are going to be okay. They've learned their lesson, and they're going to go home and, maybe get some therapy or something. I don't know.
They surely won't join another cult. So.
Yeah. People who join cults famously don't later join other cults.
Exactly. Yeah. So apparently, the note in here is that the basic story came from David Weddle, who had been an investigative reporter and had written about cults for LA Weekly and the San Jose Mercury News. So he says, "I've always been fascinated with cults. I'm interested in that hunger to find something to believe in that's bigger than the viewable reality." And he talks some about that. And then it's Vedic Fala is a good example of a typical cult follower. He's someone who desperately wants to believe. When you study cults, you find a lot of the people who were brought up in traditional religions who had strong faith when they were young, but they became disillusioned when they saw the hypocrisy as they got older. And they cast that away, but they still have that need, that hunger to find something to believe in. And that's how you end up with a charlatan like Dukat.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen a few documentaries about cults. I saw that one about Nexium, and every time I'm just like, how are you this stupid? But I understand, charismatic people get people together and create this group think or whatever.
Sometimes they're not even that charismatic.
Yeah, that's another thing is every single cult leader I've seen, I'm like, this guy seems kind of stupid. And
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why everybody is hanging on his every word.
Sometimes I guess all you need is that big old self-confidence to just say the most stupid and ridiculous things with like
Uh-huh.
clear, like you believe every word you're saying, and people are like, man, he sounds so confident.
Right.
Look at that guy.
Yep. They're effective in their ability to project confidence or whatever. So
Stupid people often are.
it's like, I've had a vision from God. You all need to stop having sex, and I should have sex with all of you. Hot women first.
And you're like, man, he makes a really good point.
I will arrange you all by cup size.
Who would say something like that if it weren't completely true?
I guess so.
Like, you'd have to be insane.
It just boggles my mind, the things that some people believe. But
it's like, did you see the recent thing about a person going for their physical, and then it's like, yeah, I took like the mental test as part of my physical, and I got the highest score that anyone's ever gotten. Like, the doctor looked at it and was like, I can't believe this. This is the highest score I've ever seen anyone get. You're amazing.
uh-huh.
And it's just like
a person did say that.
It's just like who believes
Uh-huh.
that kind of statement from someone? That's like an 11-year-old would say that. But yeah, whatever. Anyways, so back to the episode. The original script, it says Dukat was like a cult leader, but it was just like some group of aliens.
Oh no. Well,
so like I don't know if he had his own religion or what, but it was not the power.
I mean, it's kind of obvious because he was already involved with the Pa Wraith. So
well, yeah, and this was changed to the cult of the Pa Wraiths because we had established all of that stuff in these previous episodes, and then it was like it would be more poignant for both Kira and the audience if Dukat's followers were Bajoran.
Mm-hmm.
And given that he has this like previous relationship with the Bajoran people and with the Pa Wraiths, it all just made sense.
Yeah. It's the obvious direction to go.
So it also says this episode came about. Can't talk. This episode came about because the writers were like, "Hey, since that 6-episode arc and then Waltz, Dukat's kind of like disappeared. He's such a good bad guy. Everyone loves to hate him. We need to get him back in here."
Sure. I mean, except for like the end of last season. Wasn't he at the beginning of this season too?
Yes.
They at least talked about him. I think he showed up. I think he showed up at like Central Command and was like, "Hey guys, what's up?"
Yeah. I think they just talk about Dukat at the beginning of this season. Now that you say that, it was just like, man, it turns out Dukat was right. I don't know why, but and let's see. The last note in here is Renee Ashvari after the fact is like, I don't think we quite invested enough in the cultist or saw what they were even getting out of this. I don't think the Bajorans came off 3-dimensionally enough in this episode.
I think that's a fair criticism, but I mean, people do this stuff all the time, so.
It also says that in the original version, Dukat was not sincere at all. He just wanted to use the fact that the Pa Wraiths had touched him to bring some Bajorans in and like create this fantasy world. And then, like when they changed it to this idea that no, he actually is into this, he feels like it makes it pay off better.
I don't know. I think actions speak louder than words, and his actions spoke pretty loud in this episode. So.
Yeah, the fact that he wasn't going to die with everybody. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, how many women do you think he was weak with, like during prayer or whatever? Come on.
Probably all of the women.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Some of the men too, probably. I don't know.
He's got those legendary appetites. What can you do?
True. I mean, yeah.
The Pa Wraiths made him like this or something. I'm not sure how the creation thing works in Bajoran theology, but this is the path that the Pa Wraiths laid out for him, at least.
I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound. That's what it's all boils down to, I think. All right, so we can go to reviews.
All right, what did you think of Covenant? Alien Covenant. Wait, no.
I couldn't stop thinking about Alien Covenant. I maintain that Alien Covenant is a good movie. Come fight me. But yeah, in a way, I barely know what to say about this episode. And I'm pretty sure that most of the insanity of this episode went over my head when I was a kid.
Yeah, almost certainly.
But, I mean, it is so bonkersly dark and twisted. Possibly even darker than Hard Time. I don't know. And I kind of love it. Plus, it has, like, a fresh take on the religious themes of the show, so I always like it when they find new ways to go with their stuff without just repeating the same thing over and over again. Like, oh my gosh, is the Federation too comfortable and complacent? And all the performances were pretty good. In fact, I'd say they were great. The guy saying, "This is his child," was great. And I like it had this really great, like, just dreadful, constantly escalating pace. So, I think I have to give it a captain.
Wow. Okay.
Even though I understand this is something that could, I mean, you could love it or hate it for sure.
Sure.
So, what do you think?
Okay, so this is another one of those all A story, no B story, right?
True.
So that's...
I guess there's a little bit of B story, but it's kind of related to the A story, and then they just kind of forget what they're doing.
Yeah, that's fair. But I feel like those always feel a little bit different.
Sure. Yeah, it feels like they're, like, doing a thing.
Yeah.
So
I get that feeling here. There's just the fact that this is a thing that happens is so out there and away from the norm that it's just like, oh yeah, one of our main characters gets transported to a cult for an episode where, like, one of our major recurring villains is the cult leader, because why not? Of course that would happen. It's just, like, conceptually so out there that it's hard for me to, like, even put it in the same room with other episodes.
Yeah.
Not that Deep Space Nine hasn't done some weird... I mean, we had, like, Far Beyond the Stars or whatever.
Sure.
They've done some weird stuff. But, and you're right, that it's got some real dark stuff happening also. It's like, I'm gonna feed a baby this suicide pill. And you're also right that the acting is actually... I mean, the non-verbal stuff is really good. There's a lot in this episode from multiple characters that get sold purely through looks.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, like, good, like, you know, showing the faces and stuff. So
yeah, so that's good. I really want to say that there's no surprises here, which is immediately out the window, because the whole thing is like, what the hell? What is happening? But once you accept the insanity of the premise, it's just like, you can see every beat coming.
True.
It's a cult. You know a lot of what's going to happen just based on that. The cult leader is Dukat. You know exactly where all of this stuff is going. And even if you didn't call well ahead of time, oh, that kid's going to be Dukat's kid.
Oh yeah.
When it pops up, you're like, oh well, obviously. You're not surprised by it. You're just like, oh no, that makes complete sense actually.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a little lacking in that after this complete insanity of a premise, it's like utterly paint by numbers predictable. But I also just really like it. It's just so crazy that I'm like, I am enjoying this episode. And I've had problems in the past when we do too many episodes in a row that are laser focused on one character to the exclusion of the others. We haven't had that yet this season. At least not as much. Like, we're putting some ensemble pieces, like the last episode, the Siege of Vayar 558. Yeah, that's an ensemble piece. We had Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite, very much an ensemble piece. So there's been several in the first 8 episodes that are individually focused. Chrysalis, this one, Treachery, Faith in the Great River has it's got like maybe 3-person focus. So that's at least kind of ensemble. But we haven't gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, can we please get back to the group and not have this? So the fact that this episode is like 93% Kira, I don't have an issue with at this point. So I think I'm going to give it a commander. I don't know that... I don't know that I can bring myself to go, this crests the rise and becomes a captain, but I really enjoy this episode. This is one that I would watch again.
Oh yeah,
happily. So yeah.
I mean, the thing about it is, like, it's obvious if you're watching like a dark R-rated movie directed by Quentin Tarantino or something. You're like, oh well, I obviously like now he's going to trick them all into killing themselves or whatever. But just like the fact that it's a Star Trek episode,
yeah.
Like I'm just trying to imagine the writers like breaking this episode, and they're just like, wait, this is a Star Trek. We still write for Star Trek, don't we? And then the man with the baby takes 2 pills. It's like, ooh, Star Trek, right? Is Gene Roddenberry still? No, he's dead. Okay. I guess it's okay. So just really crazy episode. Like,
yep.
I just think that's one of the things. Sometimes, like, we've had episodes, it's like, this isn't a Star Trek episode, and it hurts the episode. This one is just so bananas. You're just like, what? How did this get into Star Trek? So,
honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think that this has almost been a season for that so far. Like, Take Me Out to the Holosuite is a very not normal Star Trek episode.
True.
It's not as crazy as this. But because I also today just watched Fistful of Datas. So, weird holodeck things happen sometimes. But it's definitely not a normal Deep Space Nine episode. The Siege of AR-558 is very dark, very, like, war is terrible, and Nog lost a leg. And so I feel like we're kind of going for a this is not your dad's Deep Space Nine season here.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, that I think the weird thing, I didn't think about this, I think the weirdest thing about the baseball episode is that the holosuite didn't malfunction.
Yeah, right?
I think this is the first episode of Star Trek where the holodeck functioned correctly the entire episode.
Well, yeah, and the holodeck was central to the story.
Yeah,
of the episode. I mean, it functions well when it's not super important to the story. But this was like, most of that episode takes place in the holosuite, and nothing ever goes wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely an outlier in that regard anyway. But yeah, that was also kind of that was kind of like a sitcom or a family show type episode.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we better wrap it up though. So any final thoughts? Anything you want to throw in before we go?
No, I'm good.
So yeah, that's our discussion of Covenant. Thanks for listening. If you like that one, maybe you'll like our discussion of Hard Time. What a great episode that was. Go rewatch that.
Yeah, if you like being scarred horribly, then absolutely check it out.
But you can find that wherever you're listening to this, and maybe episodes before this, after this. I don't know when you're listening. Maybe the past, maybe the future.
Concurrent with this, the episode that you release at the same time as this one.
Are you listening right now? Give me a sign. If you want to leave us a comment, you can do that on YouTube. But my name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
Adios.
We look forward to seeing you next week on Undeclared Bajor. But remember, true believers, Excelsior!
Wow, okay.